Morning, welcome. I'll call the second adjourned meeting from the 613th regular meeting. And will you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Prior to making the presentations, we have a public comment section, and if there's anybody here who would like to make a public comment, and since we don't see any, we'll close that part. And for the presentation and the interviews, I'd like to turn the meeting now over to Mr. Trustee Riley, who will conduct the interviews for the board.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
I had just a couple things to go over before I introduce our first guest. The purpose of today's meeting I see as being three-part. One is to follow up on the written proposals that the search firm sent us. Second would be to just become better acquainted with the people that we would be working with and see how the feel and communication between us and the search consultant is. And then finally, if we're at a point at the end of the day to deliberate and then choose the firm to represent us. If we can't do that, there may be some follow-up questions that we will come up with that we can follow up with in a timely manner and still be able to go to the board with the recommendation. Our focus, the format, I think is very simple. We're going to allow the consultants up to 20 minutes to make a presentation in the way that they best represent themselves. However, if they choose to make it less than 20 minutes, we would welcome that as well, because that'll just allow for more time for questions and discussion. After the presentation, we want to make sure that each trustee has an equal opportunity to have their questions answered, so we'll just go around the room one at a time and ask those questions. And then at the end of all the interviews, then we'll have a chance to deliberate and share more what we have. So if that's fine with everybody.
Great.
I'd like to introduce Dr. Ben Duran from PPL, and I think many of you already know Ben from his tenure at Merced College. And Ben, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you today. I'm representing PPL, my friend and colleague and partner, Don Averill, who is a longtime CEO in the community college system, who joined me today, but he was finally, for people our age, he was finally able to get a doctor's appointment that he's been trying to get for a long time. And so I told him, you know what, Don, I'll handle it. And he would said, I'll Skype in, I'll do whatever. But I think I can convey to you about PPL and who we are, and then go from there, and give you an opportunity to ask us any questions that you may have. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation because typically what I'd rather do is have a conversation with you, as opposed to having something on the screen and referring to something that you already know is there. So, but I did want to. I wanted to hit some points. I know you have our proposal in mind, and when I put it together, I did take the questions that were posed, and it's a bit different format for us, so I had to move things around. But I think we got to the point. But there are some things that I do want to highlight about what we do and about our proposal, and then I may or may not take 20 minutes, but then I'm certainly happy to touch base with you. Just as our proposal says, our cover letter says, we've been doing this, our company's been doing this since 1978. So there are a number of companies that do this. There aren't many of us, but we cross paths all the time. We've been doing this since 1978. Typically, and primarily, we concentrate on California. But our reach is broader. When we recruit, when we look for folks, it's a national search that we do. Because we concentrate on California in terms of our clients, our reach is pretty broad. The last several searches that I've done, we've had a significant number of out-of-state candidates who we've had in the pool. And I just want I want to let you know, and I'll talk to you a little bit later about how we go about doing that. We don't just throw it out there. We literally get on the telephone and we call folks, and we call folks from the Aspen Institute. If you're familiar with the Aspen Prize is given to community colleges that have just knocked everybody's socks off in a given year.
We're in the running.
Oh, wonderful. Well, that's fantastic. Because what we'll do is we'll find the last Aspen winners, the last 2 or 3 years, and we'll give them a buzz. And because sometimes they may not even be looking, but we want to touch base. We want to be sure. We also look at folks who have gotten awards from ACCT and other folks. So we go after those sorts of folks. We go after people who are sitting in their jobs and they're very comfortable in it and they're doing really, really well, and maybe not even thinking about applying out. And we say, hey, there's a great opportunity at YCCD, and we touch base with them, and from time to time, some of them will bite. From personal experience, when I was at Merced College, I would get those calls from time to time. And at the very least, if I didn't apply, it certainly made me feel good, one thing. But the other was it gave me an opportunity to say, you know what, I'm not interested, but my friend at such and such college is, or at such and such district might be. So we do our recruitment in such a way. I'll tell you a little bit more about where we do that. And then who'll do the search? So I would be the lead consultant. I'm 40 minutes down the road. I'm in Modesto all the time. I would be the lead consultant on this particular search. My friend and colleague Don Averill, who's a partner who I told you was going to join me today, would be the co-consultant, along with Dr. Lori Gaskin. Dr. Lori Gaskin is the sitting president at Santa Barbara Community College right now, but she's retiring in June, and she is coming on with our company, and we wanted to bring her in and hopefully break her in and give her an idea as to what searches are if we're fortunate enough to get this. And we thought Dr. Gaskin would be good because she would bring that fresh perspective from someone who's in the field literally right now, wrestling with the accreditation folks, wrestling with the state budget, wrestling with those sorts of things. It's a sort of freshness that we try to bring all of the time. Background on the candidates, I just want you to know as we go out and get candidates, one of the things that we try to do is we try to have a conversation with them, and we say to them, you know, let me tell you about YCCD. And then generally we'll have done some homework on your district. I've done a little bit. So I would say to them, back in 1927, the community of Modesto decided to create a junior college. And they created a junior college, and if you go back and you look at the newspaper articles of that time, you know, they talk about the enthusiasm that was going on, et cetera, et cetera. As we move forward, Modesto Junior College was accredited back in 1954, and then as we move a bit further, the Yosemite Community College District was approved, became a reality. And then Columbia College in 1967, the West Campus, et cetera, et cetera. So we tell them, he said, there's this history about Modesto Junior College. It has a long history in California community colleges. It argues that it is one of the oldest and not the oldest, and I don't ever get into that fight between Fresno and you guys and Santa Rosa. You know, I just stay out of it and listen. But we tell them about that. We tell them about the geographic diversity of the district. We tell them about having the mountain community, the city of Modesto and the other towns and cities that are involved with it. And then we also talk about the agricultural area, the agricultural traditions, about the west side and other parts of the east side that make up the district. We tell them all of those sorts of things. We also tell them I'll tell them, for instance, I said, you know what, for instance, I went and did this interview, and I went to the West Campus, and I said, I remember when the West Campus was nothing but these older buildings, and now it's this jewel. And we'll tell them about those sorts of things. We'll tell them about accreditation, that your colleges were taken off of sanction, that they don't have to worry about an accreditation visit till 2017, but that you're fully accredited. We'll tell them about that. We'll tell them about the finances. We'll look into finances. Says, hey, you know what? They have $9,600 in reserve. They have about 17 or 9.6 million bucks in reserve. They have about $17 million of ending balance. I said, so financially they're in good shape. We talked to them about your mission, the mission you've stated, the vision you stated, the value statements that you've stated. We talked to them about those sorts of things. We talked to them about MJC being a Hispanic serving institution, and about the STEM center that it came as a result of that, and the kind of the sort of thing, and that may be why Aspen is after you guys. So we talked to them about those sorts of things. When I talked to them about this campus and about the other construction that's taking place in the district, I'll talk to them about Measure E. And we'll say, you know, they passed Measure E back in 2004. I remember, by the way, when you did that, because we passed one the same year. And we said, back in 2004, they passed Measure E, and this is the result of it. Now you're on the tail end of it, but you're finishing up. And so those are some of the things that we would tell a candidate as we go after them, because people say, well, how do you attract candidates? Well, first of all, it's an attractive district. It's one of the districts that people would want to be at. So it's an attractive district. And then the other thing is that's important for folks to know is that you're financially stable and that it has a great reputation. So attracting candidates isn't such an issue for us. The big thing for us is how do we attract the good candidates? Because there are always going to be a layer of people that apply for everything. You'll see them in every search. What we don't do is we don't have a stable. We don't have a group of people that we go to time after time after time again and bring them to. We don't do that. We do open recruitment, we have a database, we have a PPL database of around 500 people that we send out our missives to. And when we do that, we keep culling and culling to make sure that it's an up-to-date database. And this is a national database. People who have been in our searches, people that someone have told us about or have sent us a resume, said, hey, I might be looking down the road, put us in your database. We do that. And then we have a whole list of folks that we go after and pursue. The other thing that we didn't put in the proposal, because it wasn't asked directly and I should have caught it, was this whole notion of how we pursue a diverse pool. And when we at PPL look at diversity, we look at diversity in the broadest sense. We want to bring to you candidates from literally all walks of life who see the world different ways. We're looking about gender equity, obviously ethnic equity, geographic diversity, gender diversity, and just the whole thing. Disabled folks who are very, very capable. We're looking at all of those sorts of things. So when we go out and we talk about this district, we'll say to them, it sits in the Central Valley, which is one of the most diverse regions in the country. Even though we're an agricultural area, when you start to look at the ethnic groups and the diversity of the population in the Central Valley, you'll be absolutely amazed. And so we'll make sure that we touch base on that. The one thing that distinguishes us, it's one of the things that distinguishes us, is that when we do our reference checks for you, when we finally have candidates and we start doing reference checks, we are known, if you have an opportunity or if afterwards you have an opportunity to talk to some of the references that we have listed in the proposal, they will tell you, oh my God, these guys get these extensive reference reports on each candidate, because we do the reference checks ourselves, we the consultants. We don't farm it out, we don't have staff, we don't have contractors that we farm it out to. We do them ourselves. And they will literally take anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes, sometimes an hour if you get a very loquacious person. And that happens from time to time, sometimes, especially people my age who want to talk. They're sitting home and somebody calls you and like, oh, let's talk. And they'll talk, but they'll talk and they'll talk in earnest about the candidates. And what will happen is we'll get a very good profile of who they are. We will also call people who are not on their reference list, obviously. So we'll drill down to where they work. We'll drill down to where they used to work. We'll drill down to faculty, to classified employees. We'll look at community folks who may have a sense for them so that we get a broad picture for you. The other thing that we do when we do reference checks is that we do a social media and a media Google search. We looked at their LinkedIn, we look at their Facebook, we look at any social media outlet that might be out there. Generally speaking, most professionals are going to be pretty careful about what they put on that stuff, right? But every once in a while, you'd be surprised.
Yeah, we know.
We learned that.
And so we do that, and we've been successful in uncovering a couple of things. We also will do, when you find something derogatory, there's one candidate that poor guy hasn't been successful yet, but he had a real issue in the state in which he was located, that he moved to. He was exonerated, cleared, everything was cleared. But there's so much media out there on him that we say to him, when you go to the interviews, you need to up front clear it up, clear the air. So we do those sorts of things. We do reference checks to the point where when we're doing the presentations, sometimes, especially my friend Dean, you guys are lucky Dean Colley, isn't it? Dean, my friend Dean is just really gets into it, and I have to tell him, Dean, I think they get the picture, because we really do that. And the point that I'm trying to make is we really do those really, really well. Maybe as well as anybody, maybe better than most, but we do it very, very well. The other thing that we would do with you, if we were selected almost immediately, I would ask for either the board or a subcommittee of the board, however it is that you folks want to do it. We would ask that, and how am I doing on my 20 minutes, by the way?
How are we doing?
Yeah. So I would ask that we meet immediately so that we can start to develop the profile for the district that we want to put on our website, that we want to put on brochures, that we want to put everything. What we want to do is we want to identify the challenges that the district is having. We want to identify the best parts of the district that we want to let folks know, because ultimately that profile is really going to become almost the RFP from which those people are going to write their letters and make the application. When we lay out and say, here's what we're looking for this kind of leader who has these qualities. It's these qualities, and the district has these challenges, and the district has these opportunities, and this is what we're looking for. And if you're the person, then you ought to put in for it. And what we'll do then, in terms of divvying up the roles and responsibilities, we would sit down with HR, we would sit down with your IT people, with your PIO office, and we would make sure that all of the media and everything was put together and out. We would also meet with your campus constituents. We know that you're leaving. I mean, you got your semesters, you're truncated, so your semester is going to come to close soon. So in order for us to be able to touch base with your campus communities and your folks, we'd want to do that before they leave for the semester, because something happens, they just evaporate and they're hard to find. And so we want to be sure we meet with them before the semester to get their sense of what they want in the profile and what they think they're looking for in a chancellor. And of course, it's ultimately your call, because that's the one and only person who works for you, who reports directly to you. So ultimately, you folks are the ones. And then I'll leave you with this, and I'll take questions. But the selection committee is in the proposal. I put in a recommendation as to what a selection committee might look like. But again, that's totally up to you. We never drive the district. We don't come in and say, this is the way it's done, bam, bam, bam. We don't do that. What we do is we say, here are our recommendations. We've learned this over the years. But if you want to do it a little differently, then you're welcome to. And then we'll help you do that. But there's a search committee recommendation in there that you might want to follow. And I would recommend 2, maybe 3 trustees on the committee, but again, it's up to you folks, and then the various constituents, essentially the way that I have laid it out. And when we think about doing that, then we think that we're going to be pretty well covered. And then ultimately, what we'll do, and when it comes to you, there are 2 ways that people, well, generally speaking, we would sit down with you and we'd come up with a whole bunch of, we'd come up with some questions and say, you want to ask this, you want to ask that. We'll go to the profile and we say, well, you had said you were looking for this, this, and this. That's one way of doing it. Another way we've done with some districts is we developed a process where we identify maybe 5 or 6 topics, broad topics. They could be the topic around bringing together the colleges and the centers, et cetera, because everybody always thinks they're not getting. How does a chancellor bring those folks together? How does the board and the chancellor work on that? It could be something on enrollment management in the district. How do you do appropriate enrollment management in the district? It could be around the chancellor and the community and how the chancellor makes the district become part of the community. And I mean, it could be whatever it is, the topics that you thought, I really, really want to know about that. How are they going to strengthen our foundation? How are we going to get more dollars? It may be a whole 15 or 20-minute conversation around diversity, for instance. There are populations that we're not drawing in. There are parts of our district that we're not touching. How do we bring them in? So typically, if we were to do that sort of a process and we would run it by you, we would pick maybe 5 or 6, and maybe you'd spend 20 minutes on each one. And each trustee would start one off, and we'd get a couple of questions to kick it off, and then you'd have a conversation, and you would play off of each other, and you'd get a good sense, maybe, about what that person really, really knows. Because sometimes when you ask a question, anybody who comes into an interview hasn't thought out the questions and say, I know they're going to ask me about this. They're going to ask me about diversity. They're going to ask me about my style. They're going to ask me about this. Anybody who comes into an interview and isn't really well prepared, they shouldn't be there anyway. So this other process sometimes allows you to drill down a bit further as to what they really, really know about. So anyway, that's kind of the PPL way. We're a bunch of retired administrators with fresh associates that we're bringing in from the field to try to keep us as fresh as we possibly can. And so with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. And I'm going to grab my proposal here in case you reference.
Good. Thank you, Dr. Duran. We'll start with Ann and just work our way around. We have a limited amount of time,
Sure.
but please answer the question thoroughly, but be cognizant that we want to have everybody have a chance to ask. Yeah?
Okay, and it looks like it's about 5 minutes per person. So I have 2 questions I'd like to ask you. One is just for clarification about potential candidates that you would recruit. I don't exactly know how it works. So I know you talked about recruiting them, but does candidate A do they have an association with maybe 4 or 5 different companies like yours? If I'm looking for a job, okay, so do I contact 4 or 5 and they?
No, generally speaking, people who are looking for positions are looking at the advertisements. I have a list here so we would advertise with the district and all the listservs in the system, and then we would advertise at ACCT, at ACC, the various networks. We have a whole list of folks who would advertise. We advertise at the University of Southern California, Stanford, their career center. We put it out there. And typically, we don't have a stable. We don't have people that belong.
Do other firms?
Some do. A couple do, but not all. But basically, most of us, what we'll do is we'll put it out there, and then they'll contact us. And they say, I'm interested in the position. But if we do it right, we will refer them to the website. And typically, the website will give them a lot of information on the district. And then it'll also say, if you're interested, apply here. And you pop that, and it talks all about the application process.
Then the people that you call up on the phone and try to recruit, where do you get those names from?
We get those names, some from the database that we have, some from other contacts that we have, individuals that we've talked to, lists from the Aspen Institute, and from other prestigious sorts of awards that we think we want to call. That's how we'll call. And then we'll go through the CCLC directory. And then we know a lot of folks, right? So we'll go through them and say, oh, I wonder if he's ready. I wonder if she's ready.
Okay.
That's what we'll do.
And my other question, with the remaining 3 minutes, maybe I have, different people have different opinions on the value of of having someone from out of state come. The main negative that I've heard put forth is that, well, they don't understand the California laws. But I think there are advantages to including people from out of state. So in 2 minutes, could you give me the pluses and minuses about recruiting out of state candidates?
My friend Dean would say, we had a candidate in a search that we hired, and they were spectacular. Bryce Harris was an out-of-state guy, by the way, when he came to Fresno. We had another search where the candidate crashed and burned. So the short answer is, what you're looking for are people with leadership skills and qualities, not people who are necessarily knowledgeable about California. The one district we did do insisted that the person needed to be more California-oriented. And we think they left some candidates on the table that probably would have been good candidates to interview. So my answer to you would be, you're looking for people with some leadership qualities, some leadership skills, with some experiences they can bring to your district. They've got smart people who can tell them about California. They've got a vice chancellor I used to work with, Teresa Scott. She's one of the best in the state, if not the best. And I've not had the opportunity to work with Gina, but you have smart people who would bring them up to date, up to snuff on California.
Thank you.
Tom?
Very impressive, Dr. Duran. I really liked a lot of things that you said. They've stood out for me from some of the other search consultants we've had in the past. So, again, very impressed. Just follow up on a couple of things briefly. You talked about you have a good track record of developing a diverse pool of candidates. And I know it's not your call in the end, but do you have any idea how many are ultimately placed in the searches you all have had?
Of the last searches that I've been involved in, and again, it's not an obligation because,
Right.
nor should the district be looking for a person of color or a person of this gender. We don't do that, right?
Right.
But of the last 3 searches that I've done, there was a Latina woman placed as the president. There was an East Indian woman placed as a president, and there was a Latino man placed as a president. Now, it just so happened that they happened to have been in the top 3, and then when the board talked with them, they picked them. I mean, so in terms of diversity, our pools are in fact diverse. We really go out of our way to make sure that, especially not only ethnic diversity, but gender diversity, to make sure that there are some really bright folks from all walks of life. And what happens is that folks literally, your good ones rise to the top, regardless of what their background is.
I think that's what I was looking for, because I've had that sense, but it never seems to play out in the past. So that's very good to hear. I guess I'll just kind of go back to a basic one. What kind of sets you apart? You're used to dealing with the other folks, and I know
We're local. I'm a local guy. I'm going to be down here. That was the other thing that I didn't tell you is we don't limit the number of visits that we make to your district. And especially where I am right now, I could be up here. I would be up here all the time. We're available by telephone, by email, by text, and so we're local. I mean, I'm a local guy, and I know the valley. I know this district very, very well. I know the valley very well. Our references separate us. I mean, they really do. The way we do our references, you won't get a duck. You really won't get a duck, because we'll be really upfront with you and say, here's what we found. And we do that. We do that very, very well. Everyone else does their own way of doing recruitment and finding folks. There are a couple of folks who have stables. We don't do that. There are other firms that you'll probably speak to today that don't. And I just don't think that serves the district well.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Don?
One of the qualities that I think a chancellor should have is great personal integrity. How do you ascertain that?
We build it right into when we're asking, we say, we're looking for people that have these qualities. We would build it in there, right? So when we start doing recruitment, everyone is going to tell you that they have integrity, and everyone's going to tell you that. Not they should put their papers in. But again, when we talk to, first of all, when we do our media checks, you will see if there are any problems with someone in their district or wherever they've been. Sometimes you'll see those social stories come up. But when we do, and that's why I'm getting back to the reference checking, but when we do our in-depth reference checking, because I mean, if you're going to put down references, you're going to put down your mother, your father, your best friend. You're going to put down folks who are going to give you good references. So we'll check those people, and then we'll say to those people, "Is there anybody else we can talk to?" Sometimes they say yes, and sometimes no. But then we go a step further. We'll call the college. Or the district union leader. We'll call the other union leaders. We'll call the Senate folks. We'll call just classified people. Your administrative assistant who used to work with him or her, can you tell us these sorts of things? And when you look at, in our proposal, we put in there the protocol, the questions that we ask. If you look at the questions again that we ask, we really do drill down in there. And we say, is there anything that's going to embarrass the district? Is there anything that you would say to us that, this, and you'd be surprised at when you get down into about the second or the third level, what people will tell you. The first level, they're not going to tell you anything but good things about folks. But you get into that second and you get into that third level, they say, well, you knew about this, didn't you? No. Oh, that somebody's wife came and scratched his car because he was having, an affair. And all. Those sorts of things. Those sorts of things start to ultimately come out. That's how we ascertain for you whether a person has that integrity that we're looking for.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Duran, you pretty much answered my questions. The ones I had was on open recruitment, ag and diversity for our area, and reference checks. I think, having been on a couple of search committees, I know sometimes the reference checks don't really spell out the individual. Sometimes they're trying to get rid of them and give them a good recommendation, but that's neither that. But the most important thing is that, for us as a board, that's probably the most important decision we'll ever make is to appoint a chancellor for our district. And knowing the valley is really important as far as I'm concerned, because we do have a very diverse community. And my goal has always been that we make our college as diversified as our community in general. So that's where I'm coming from. So,
Thank you.
And looking for an area.
Yeah, and just to that point, when I was at the Great Valley Center, I was at the Great Valley Center for 3 years, and then I'm supposed to work full time. I'm retired, but when I was at the Great Valley Center, one of the things we worked closely with the University of California Health Sciences folks, and they wanted to meet these underrepresented groups that were out there. And folks had never really gone to the Assyrian community, for instance, and asked them to be participants in surveys, or the East Indian community, or the other communities, or, frankly, the West Side folks, both, by the way, both farm workers and other folks, people that live there, middle class and upper class folks, some of the property owners. No one had ever asked them. No one had ever gone and said, oh, by the way, we're doing these surveys on health, on air quality in the Central Valley. And nobody had ever asked them. So one of the things that I've learned is that simply because you assume that a certain population is going to be accessed, you don't do that. And that's why we take great care. So appreciate you bringing that up.
Thank you.
Dr. Duran, you had a very impressive presentation to us, and I'd appreciate that. Some of us have done some background checking on your firm, and some of the things that we've found that people said that were negative about you were that you didn't have good follow-up, and we felt like we were not a priority, and that you had a lack of response to inquiries. How do you address these?
To increase?
Yeah, like if we were to ask you something, we didn't get a response back, was one of the responses that we got when we asked about.
Interesting, yeah. Well, it's surprising to me, first of all, because one of the reasons that we always assign two candidate or two consultants to a search, and in this case it'll be 3, is because for the very things that you're saying, we do want to follow up, and we have always, as far as I know, have followed up. In terms of the consultants being assigned, we'll each have our niche, and they will be the people who will be responsible for that. And I will oversee the other two, and I will make sure that we do the follow-up. So from my perspective, I don't know. I'm like, really, it breaks my heart. My heart hurts, because in reality, if you were to call, for instance, the last 2 or 3 searches that Don and I have been on, for instance, I'm hoping that they would say to you just the different, and interestingly, the one district that we just finished, where we hired a president, one of the board members said, I'm tired of these firms with a bunch of old guys and gals walking in on canes. I mean, literally, that's what he said. and the chancellor said, man, you got a lot of work to do. So yeah, so we worked our tails off, and we really worked with the committee. We worked with the search committee, and then we ultimately worked with the chancellor and that board member, another board member. And he came up to us afterwards and says, you've changed our mind. You guys are old, but you're not old and decrepit. You guys know what you're doing. So we really do work hard, and I appreciate having heard that, because now I will tell my partners. We have partners calls every month. We have a partners call on Wednesday, and I'll say to them, I was at YCCD, and guys and gals, you got to be careful, because someone said this, and we can't have that happen.
Okay,
That would be my response to you, because
Thank you.
because we really do work hard at it.
all right.
My question actually ties into Lynn's question. How many searches are you conducting right now? Because certainly if these kinds of comments are being thrown out there, we would want to know that you're really serious about our search should we select you. So right now, how many searches?
I'm not doing any searches.
Okay.
Neither is my friend Don, neither is Lori Gaskin. We're committed to this search. We've submitted ourselves to this search. We have a team that's doing Taft. We have a team that's doing Gavilan. We have a team that just finished at Butte. Don and I just finished at Oxnard. And we don't put people on, we don't do 2 searches at a time. That's why we have associates also. The associates that we have are experienced folks just like us. And Lisa Sujimoto is from the South. Sherry Guerrero's from the South, and of course Jim Riggs, who used to work here a long time ago, is doing Taft with my friend Dean Cawley right now. He's one of the consultants that we use, as is Jose Ortiz, who is a freshly retired chancellor at Peralta. And so what we do, and then Robert Griffin, my friend, is going to do Lake Tahoe, and so we don't overextend ourselves. In fact, to the point where when Fresno's position came up, and we were asked to apply, I actually got a call from Pat Patterson, who's a board member, he's a friend of mine, I've known him for a long time, and he asked us to apply for that search. I told him, Pat, we're overextended, and we wouldn't do good service for you, because all of the teams that we have right now are literally either in a search right now or are going to be committed to a search in a month or 2. So we didn't put in for Fresno.
So at any one time, you would only be engaged in the one search, you and your team, this little core of teams, you would not be engaged in another
Yeah.
search. You would be focusing, should we select you?
At this point, we don't anticipate that happening. If there was a search that were to come in, because that's one of the things that we also say in our proposal. At any given time, if anything happens to any of us, if for any reason we're not, one of the other partners, and it's not an associate that jumps in, it's one of the partners that jumps in to assist us. For instance, there's a search that's going to be taking place up north. So Guy Lease, who is one of our partners and is the trustee at San Francisco right now, Guy Lease and Jose Ortiz are putting in for that proposal. So yeah, we would try to hold it to literally to one search apiece, especially a search of this magnitude.
Mm-hmm. So this would be the core team, the names that we see on the proposal.
That's who you would work with.
Okay.
That's who you would be working with. And we really work, unless something happens to one of us, like physically or illness or something, we don't do a bait and switch. We don't bring in we don't have any pretty faces. I was going to say, we don't bring in a pretty face, a stature, somebody of stature, somebody that everybody knows, as kind of the front person, and then bait and switch. We don't do that.
So you're located in Merced, is that correct?
I live in Merced, yeah.
And the other individuals are located where?
Lori Gaskin lives in Santa Barbara,
Okay.
and Don Averill lives in Yucaipa.
So as questions come up, then we would be contacting you directly, or the
You could
team?
contact all 3 of us, because we'll make ourselves available, depending on what it is. But yeah, we prefer to run everything through the chair, and then also for me to have a contact. Now, if you wanted to say, like, everybody can call me, that's fine with me. It's not a problem. Or if you want to have, like, a funnel that you funnel your questions through, either way. But, yeah, I mean, they're all capable of responding, and we would